We are talking about some of the common questions that I get about how the Impact Incubator program works. At the time of this recording, the Impact Incubator K to R program for women faculty is open for enrollment for our July cohort. And so, let me tell you a little bit about how the program works. The Impact Incubator program is 9 months and it's divided into three key phases. The first phase of the program is all about protecting your time and protecting your capacity and getting really clear on what kind of impact you want to make with your research. And the reason that we start there is because having a vision for where you're headed is absolutely crucial for the next stages to be successful, for actually writing your grants. And so we want to make sure that you have a really strong foundation in place first so that you are able to successfully write grants and get really clear on what it is that you want to accomplish with your research. So we start out by helping you develop that vision for your career and your research. And then from that vision, we're able to narrow down on some goals and priorities, both in the short term and in the long term, so that you know exactly where you're headed. And then to be able to support those goals and priorities, we have to put some really good habits and boundaries in place so that you can actually stay focused and keep your eyes on the prize and do what you say you're going to do. And so all of that happens in the first phase of the program, the absolutely crucial first stage of the program. Once you've completed that stage, we move on to phase two, which is all about strategy and planning. And this is really about operationalizing that vision and those goals and priorities that you set out in the first phase. So, what we're really doing here is taking a closer look at how you're actually going to take that big vision you have for your research and narrow it down into a specific question for your next step R01. And so we do that by helping you write what we call an ugly draft of your aims page to look at it at a conceptual level and start thinking about what is the success strategy for this particular project? What elements do we need to have in place that are going to make this application the most competitive it can possibly be? And so we start looking at things like the team that you need to assemble to be able to successfully execute the project. We need to look at your publication pipeline. We need to look at your target funding institute or center and make sure that you are in touch with a program officer to pass your idea by them and make sure that it is within the mission and priorities of your target institute. So that's really the sort of success strategy component of that second phase. And the other thing that happens in the second phase is we get really specific about project management. And it might seem kind of dull and boring, but it's absolutely crucial to your success. So back in phase one, we developed some really strong habits and boundaries that will allow you to stay focused on what you need to accomplish to be successful. And then in phase two, we sort of plug in the components that you need to successfully get this one grant out the door. We sort of plug them into that existing structure that you have created for yourself. So we break down this massive grant writing project into smaller components, and then we fit that into the schedule and the structure that you have created for yourself that you know works really well for you. Okay, so that's really what we are trying to accomplish in that second phase, is ensuring that you have all of those elements in place that allow you to focus strategically on getting this grant into as competitive a position as it can possibly be, and then making sure that you have the appropriate amount of time and space to do what is required to get that grant into a really competitive position. And a lot of that involves, really deep thinking and feedback, and making sure that you are devoting what is required in terms of time and attention into having a clear concept for your project, but also then being able to take that concept and go into the right amount of detail for the actual grant itself. And that is what leads us into phase 3 of the program, which is where we get into the actual nitty gritty of writing the application. And so, what we're doing in phase 3 is teaching you some key rhetorical frameworks and key writing techniques that are going to help you convey your research idea in a way that is clear and exciting and persuasive, which is exactly what you need to be doing if you want to position your grant in a competitive way. And so we take those frameworks that I've been teaching for a very long time and that we know are really successful. We take those frameworks and we apply them to each and every section of an R01, so that you know exactly how to use the frameworks and the techniques in each section of the grant. And so as you're moving through each of the sections of the grant, you'll know exactly what to do step by step, and in terms of how to go about the actual writing. So again, phase 1 is really about protecting your time and capacity and developing a clear vision for where you want to go in your career. Phase 2 is really about strategy and planning and making sure you have all of the right elements in place to be successful. And stage 3 is about writing your application in a way that is clear and persuasive and exciting. And so again, all of that happens in a 9 months container. And what's really interesting about the way that we have designed this program is that you can move through those phases at a pace that feels right for you. So if you feel pretty confident, for example, about setting up all of those foundational pieces that you need in phase 1, you can get through that in, let's say 6 weeks. And so then you have the remainder of that time to really devote to phases 2 and 3, where you're getting into the specifics of your next R01 and really giving it the amount of time that the project truly deserves to be successful. Or conversely, you might really need to spend a lot of time focusing on shoring up those foundations for yourself so that you can have everything in place to have that long-term success. And that might take, let's say, 4 months. And so then you would have the remaining time in the program to work on your R01. And you may still be able to get that R01 finished within that remaining time. Or you may realize that that is less important to you than setting yourself up for success over the long term. And so you are really focused on that piece, and then you can have those other months to get started and to really focus on the concept of your R01, and then take all those tools and frameworks with you beyond the container of the program. So those are just 2 examples, but truly you can organize it in any way that makes sense to you, in any way that works for you. But just know that me and the rest of the team are there to support you, to keep an eye on you, and to make sure you're getting exactly what you need. And 2 of the other ways that we support you and guide you and make sure that you have what you need is that throughout the program, you'll have access to bi-monthly coaching calls with me, where if you're ever feeling stuck on anything that you're learning inside the curriculum of the program, you can bring that to a coaching call and we can talk it through and help you get unstuck. And then in later phases of the program, in phases 2 and 3, you'll also have access to bi-monthly editorial feedback calls. So this is where you can actually bring your documents, your grant text to an editor and have an editor look over that text and give you some feedback on how you're applying those frameworks and techniques that we teach. So that is also available to you in the later phases of the program. But again, you have this 9-month container to help you move through what you need to be successful in both the short term and the long term. And so that's the structure of the program. At the moment, we are enrolling for the July cohort. So if you're watching this in June 2022, I invite you to take our K to R readiness assessment, where we have designed a readiness assessment that will allow you to figure out where you need the most support as you are moving from your K award to R1 level funding. And once you've taken that assessment and figured out where you need that support, you can book a call with me and we can talk about your particular situation and see whether the Impact Incubator is the right kind of support for you right now. If you happen to be watching this later, you can still head to the link in the video description where we link to that readiness assessment, and you can get yourself on the waiting list for the next round of the program. So if you have any more questions about how the program works, how it's structured, I invite you to reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.